Naseehah since the month of Ramadan. And I don't know if you feel the sadness. Ramadan was about 10 days ago, subhanallah. And so we reflect, my dear brother and sister, on what is the state of our lives currently. You know, in the month of Ramadan, there are the mechanisms of rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And with the month coming to an end and we are post-Eid, sometimes the spirituality drops. But a very important point for every single one of us is to seek the acceptance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah to accept our ibadah of Ramadan, will accept our fasting, our salah, and every act of goodness that we engaged in the month of Ramadan. My dear brother and sister, very briefly this evening, I just want to talk about, I think, a point that many of us battle with after the month of Ramadan. In the month of Ramadan, because of the way the month has been legislated, we engage in good deeds daily. Daily there's fasting, there's reading of Quran, there's extra salah, there's charity, and so forth. And after Ramadan, we sometimes think that those actions were limited to Ramadan. And so a reminder that whenever we feel a little bit low, we feel that there isn't that same level of spirituality or closeness to Allah, what is the solution? That you have to continue doing some of those actions. That feeling of being closer to Allah won't continue if you just sit still. If you just return to a life of bare minimal worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I want to mention the hadith of our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he said, أفضل الصلاة بعد الفريضة صلاة الليل. The best salah that you can perform after your fard salah is salatul layl. And salatul layl, in fact, it's the category in fiqh. Taraweeh salah is actually part of the category of salatul layl. But when salatul layl is performed in the month of Ramadan, we call it taraweeh. And outside of Ramadan, it takes on the name salatul layl. And it doesn't mean that you can't perform the salah outside of Ramadan. You can. It is of the very meritorious salawat to perform. So to continue getting closer to Allah, there must be nafil salah. And so you don't need a jama'ah for salatul layl. Salatul layl is any salah, nafil salah, performed after Isha until Fajr. All of the salawat in that category is salatul layl. So after your sunnahs of Isha and before witr, you can have salatul layl. And generally people perform it a short period after Isha. So you can perform salatul layl perhaps maybe 30 minutes after Isha. And they generally, the ulama write that if you want to perform salatul layl, to differentiate between salatul layl, qiyamul layl, or qiyam, or any other format, try to perform it before midnight. And then the salah you perform after midnight, ba'da mutasif al-layl, after midnight, goes into the categorization of tahajjud generally. And as the elderly and some fuqaha have written, that your tahajjud is normally after you've slept a little bit. Meaning that you performed salah and you slept and you got up, and that would be tahajjud salah. But our Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam that of the best salawat you can perform, salatul layl. And you can perform it, of course the recommended rak'ah, you do it in units of 2. And generally we say with salatul layl, it is recommended that you don't, not that you don't, you can go beyond up until 20 technically, but in the description of salatul layl, you would stop at 8. In accordance with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, his tradition was that when he performed salatul layl, it would be 8 rak'at, and then of course you add on to that tahajjud. So to continue getting closer to Allah, you and I have to work a little harder now. And then our Prophet ﷺ, when he was asked by the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, Ayyul a'mal ahabbu ila Allah, which actions are beloved to Allah? He said, فَقَالْ أَدْوَمُهَا وَإِنْ قَلْ. Those things that you continue doing, that you engage in perpetuity, but even if it is a little bit of that. Meaning that even if we can't fast maybe every day, you take on the sunnah fasting weekly. In the middle of the month, the white days, and the certain, days when it is recommended for fasting. We are going to be approaching Dhul Hijjah, and we're going to have, of course, it is recommended to fast on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm Arafah. We're going to get Muharram's fasting, and there are many other moments when you can fast. So what is beloved to Allah is if you can continue in a practice of doing good. So with the charity, continue doing good. With the adhkar, continue. The Quran, the ulama, they sometimes joke before Ramadan, they say now is the time to take out that Quran again. And the dua is that you never packed it away yet, inshallah. That the Quran is still there, that you're still listening to it, and you are still reading it, even if it is a little bit. Even if you can dedicate, I'm just going to read a page or a few verses, but daily. And not only Surah Yasin and Tabarak and the other beneficial surah, but increase in that. And my dear brother and sister, we will have a sustained relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we engage in this, remember it was the tradition of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, some of them, for 6 months after Ramadan, they continuously ask Allah to accept what they did in Ramadan. So every single day, ask Allah, Ya Allah, accept that fasting, accept what dua I made, accept the dua I made on Laylatul Qadr, because we're now in the year that has been decreed for us. So we are experiencing the qada, the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my dear brothers and sisters, as we resume our program at Masjid al-Taqwa, of course every night we have an activity, talk after Maghrib, and of course on Thursday night would be our dhikr, inshallah, which will take place after Isha, not after Maghrib, because Maghrib is quite early. And then of course Friday morning we have our tahajjud, which will be performed at the masjid. Then because there is such a large number of young individuals that would like to learn to lead salah, and they are busy with their hifz, we are implementing Salatul Layl as well at the masjid. And we plan to have it at least one Friday night around about 9 p.m. or so, inshallah, not too late. And we will of course announce to the Jama'ah when we start implementing that. So if it is by this Friday, we will announce during Jumu'ah. But if not, then it might be a later Friday, inshallah. But engage in the ibadat, perform your tahajjud at home, perform those good deeds. MashaAllah, the children have been put into a good routine. Keep them in that routine. And continue pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So my dear brother and sister, may you have a beautiful week. May Allah accept from us. And until next week, inshallah, Sunday night Naseehah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.